At the heart of the community, Michael Boyd on Radio West 5.
Yes, I'm absolutely delighted to have in the studio Devon McHugh from Abbot House and Stephen Adamson from FifeVoluntaryAction in the studio. Devon, welcome to the studio. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen here in the studio with us. He's going to be sitting in the background, listening in. Pitching in. I'd just like to ask you, Devon, Abbot House. I mean, I've read about it in the papers and stuff, but for the benefit of anyone that doesn't know Abbot House or has never heard of Abbot House, what's it all about?
Abbot House is a heritage centre located right on the Maygate here in Dunfermline. It's actually Dunfermline's oldest domestic building, so second really only to the medieval section of the Abbey. And we have sections of the building that date back to probably the mid-15th century, with a little bit that's added on pretty much every 100 years since then.
It's a very historic building.
It's a terrific building, yeah.
Built in the
15th century, probably around 1450 is our best guess. Well, the archaeologist's best guess.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about old buildings, artefacts. Is there a lot of artefacts to see in the building?
Loads. Well, a lot of people will know about the dig that went on this summer, which was just behind us, prepping for the new museum that's coming in. Yeah. With any place, I mean, most of central Dunfermline, really, there's been habitation here going back to sort of the 11th century, probably earlier, and so there's evidence of basically thousands of years of people living here and all the stuff that we leave behind.
I've been keeping a pace of the dig that happened in Dunfermline, and they found parts of pipes.
They found awesome stuff. They found really amazing stuff. And there's a seminar coming up on the 27th of November, actually, that gives a little bit more information on what they found. But Rathmel Archaeology, the company that ran it, did a really terrific job. I think one of the more exciting things is what we're finding out about the landscape in central Dunfermline during that time. But visual stuff that they found is great. My favourite thing is a tiny diamond shape, bright emerald green floor tile that they found, medieval, but it's just a beautiful, perfect little minuscule thing. It's just awesome.
So you could imagine that floor tile across a floor.
Hundreds of them across the floor, and like really vibrant in colours, and just terrific.
Yeah. So you said that you found just one piece. What would happen to the rest of that? I mean, what happened? Do you have any knowledge of what happened to the rest of that tiling? Or?
Well, what they found during the dig over the summer was that the space where the library car park is now, behind the Carnegie Library, where they're going to be putting some of the museum buildings, that space actually may have been used as a midden, which basically, your trash pit. Probably was a pond at the time, so they just thought, all right, we'll take all this junk and we'll just toss it in the pond and it'll be fine. So some of the stuff most of the stuff that was found there would actually be, something that people are finished with. It's the sort of throwaway stuff, which is one of the interesting things about sort of exploring the past, what you get left over.
It's amazing story. Well, we're going to have a bit of music now. We're going to have The Little Things by One Direction, and it's always the little things that are found.
It's always One Direction that you find.
Direction.
all paths lead to One Direction.
All paths
All paths lead to One Direction. No. Yeah, but we'll have a bit of this.
At the heart of the community, Michael Boyd on Radio West 5.
Yep, that was One Direction, Little Things, and we're talking about the emerald tiles that were found at Abbot House, and why they were found and where they were found. But we've got Devon McHugh from Abbot House, the director, and we're just chatting away. And I'm going to ask you, is there a fee to get into Abbot House?
It used to cost £4 to come and see around the house. Obviously, the cafe is free, but very generously this summer we received a grant from Fife Council to help us drop our admission charges. So school groups come in for free, everybody comes in for free, and I think it's helpful because if you have to invest, £4, even if it's only £4, for many people that's not going to break the bank. But the truth is, then you feel like you have to really make a day of it and get your money's worth. And what we prefer is that, particularly as we're developing our changing exhibitions, that people are able to just come in and pop in and take a peek at, our 16th century wall painting, or look around the building and, get a little bit of historic inspiration, or even just kill 20 minutes coming in to look at the archaeology we have on display. Just take a couple seconds and take a peek at it. We have to integrate that sort of historical heritage thing in everyday life rather than one day for 8 hours. That's too much for most people.
Let's get our money's worth.
That's too much for me most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, there is that element, and you want people to relax and look at the exhibits and read about them as well, and hopefully take home some sort of knowledge. either school or home or chat about it.
Or just to think about it and have you think about the past in a different way, or think about your current daily life in a slightly different way, or even just see something that you go, oh, I love the colour of that. Everything is worthwhile in that way.
Yeah. So are there any artefacts or any sort of sites in Abbot House that would stick in your mind, or you want to?
Our sort of greatest hits.
Your greatest hits?
From a radio. Our 16th century wall painting is, I think, our greatest hit. It's one of those things that it asks more questions than it gives answers. We're missing the central section of it, and it may actually be one of a cycle of 12 paintings. But the truth is, we don't know, so we're still researching it. I've been working with Mike Bath, who's the acknowledged Scottish expert on decorative painting in the Renaissance, to try and figure out what it is. But actually, really, it's one of those things with early modern research. You just have to get the word out, and eventually somebody will have seen something where it's mentioned, and we start to get a little bit more information on it.
Yeah. So you're confident that there's a section of painting somewhere?
Oh, no, it's definitely gone. The fireplace fell in 1690. Oh. We know the exact date, actually, that it fell in. Well, either luckily or unluckily. Luckily from a sort of knowledge perspective, unluckily in that we lost the central section of the fireplace. The woman who was living there at the time, Anne Hockett, is probably the premier diarist of the 17th century. She wrote more than 1 million words, and some of those words include the 10th of October in 1690, when the fireplace fell in and absolutely gave her the terror of her life. And that is, we believe, when the central section of this mural fell in, unfortunately.
Okay. Obviously, she didn't have any household insurance.
No, she didn't. Poor woman. But her house was owned by the Earl of Dunfermline, so that to an extent offers its own insurance.
Right, okay. Yes, Small Town Boy, Bronski Beat, and I remember dancing around to that after I'd had a beer. But now I mentioned beer, we have Devon McHugh from Abbot House and Stephen Adamson from FifeVoluntaryAction, and we're just chatting off air about the brew house in Abbot House. It's a big element nowadays. It's just come on board,
yeah, it is, and there's nothing quite like a smooth transition, Mike, and that was nothing like a smooth transition, was it?
No. Just the thought of beer.
We distracted you by beer talk, and you can think of nothing else now.
I can actually smell the beer in the studio. I don't know whether that's from...
That was just me last night,
It comes off Stephen's skin, oh dear.
Or maybe it was Devon last night, we don't know.
Well.
In the brew house, sampling their home brew. So, how did the beer come into being? I mean, whose initiative was that? Was it just a natural progression for you?
It was a project I started thinking about 18 months ago. We had some space that was underused just adjacent to Abbot House, where the brew house is now, and we were thinking about what we could put there and what would best suit it. And then I started working with John Reid, who's our brewer, who is a brewing historian and professional brewer, and started talking to him. John's retired now, and so he's really interested in sort of heritage beers, and we started working on this project. Eventually we got some funding from Tenants Caledonian through their seed fund, which was very generous of them, and that helped us alter the space to actually get it, looking as it does now, and get the equipment in to brew it. And then we just opened, almost exactly a month ago now. Wow. Was our grand opening, and we have been brewing on site for a couple months now.
And people can go along and buy this beer on site.
Yes, please. We would like you to come along and buy the beer. It's for sale in the shop. You can also buy it to drink on site in the cafe, and you can come along and watch John brew as well, which is great.
It's fantastic story, and a fantastic initiative for a charity.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think everybody thinks that charities only have to do like slightly staid, worthy things, but actually working at a charity is really fun. It's rewarding as well, but it doesn't have to be all sort of tears and working hard charities. Yeah. So there's some of that.
Yeah, so that must help lighten the load of conversation amongst the volunteers there.
Well, it does. We're gradually converting our volunteer force. Not all of them are keen beer drinkers, but we'll get them eventually.
Yeah, you'll get them eventually. You'll get them doing this, won't you?
At the heart of the community, Michael Boyd on Radio West 5.
Yes, we're back in the studio. We're chatting to Devon McHugh from Abbot House. And Devon, I'd just like to ask you more about the beer and the funds. People would imagine that, if they buy beer from Abbot House and your charity, Does that go into the upkeep of the house? Or?
It does, absolutely. Although we encourage people who buy our beers to not, in fact. I would never, ever like to, say anything against Tiny Tempa or Calvin Harris because they'll come beat me up. But we don't encourage people to drink from the bottle because it is bottle conditioned and you will get yeast in your teeth like a big baleen whale. So we encourage people to pour it responsibly into a glass and sip it gently from there.
Sip it gently and drink responsibly.
Yes, of course,
and
always.
Enjoy the taste.
And enjoy the wonderful flavours and the taste of history that you're getting. Yeah. Yes, the beers that you buy, all of our beers, the profits from them are invested back into the house. And we're a charity. Our mission is to help preserve the house, to help promote the history of Dunfermline and to help educate people about that history. Yeah. And so that's really what any of the money that comes from that or from any of our charitable activities goes to.
And it's a fantastic setting to volunteer in, isn't it? I mean, we're talking over here about the need for volunteers.
It is, yes. And we're really proud of our volunteers. They work so hard. Our volunteers, we have more than 70 now on the books, which is a lot. Yeah. They pretty much run everything from the cafe, the shop. Our guides are volunteers. They participate in the brewing. They help us with events. They work in our garden. Our volunteers basically do everything, and they really excel at it.
So you're still looking for volunteers to come on board, though?
Always. We're always looking for new volunteers.
Yeah. So what types of roles have you got available for the volunteers?
Anything, from working in the cafe, being served, to doing a little bit of weeding in the garden or planting, to working as a sort of information assistant either in the house or in the brew house. We take volunteers for all things. And we take volunteers from a really diverse group. We actually are really proud to have won just last week a silver medal for the Fife Business Diversity Awards.
Wow.
Which is terrific. So if people are interested in getting involved, there's really nothing to stop them.
We'll have more about Abbot House after the break.
You're listening to Michael Boyd on Radio West Fife's Charity Choice.
A bit later today, because we've got a special guest in the studio, Devon McHugh from Abbot House. Hi, welcome back to the studio, Devon.
Hello.
We're chatting off here about the opening times. Open like Monday to Friday, Abbot House? Or
all the time. We're open all the time. No, not really. Close enough. We're open 7 days a week from 9:30 to 5 most days, except on Thursday and Friday evenings when we're open a little bit later. We're open till 7. So if you want to pop by for a sort of after-work drink, try one of our beers, come have a snack. It's actually really, particularly as it gets colder and the sort of nights draw in, it's a really nice place to come sit by candlelight, listen to a little bit of music, have a glass of wine or a beer and, a coffee or whatever, have a chat with people that you wanted to catch up with or just sit alone quietly. It's quite lovely, actually.
That's not just any old beer, that's the world famous
our beer. It's our beer.
Yeah.
And I have to say, our wine's not any old wine either. We source it very, very carefully and it's lovely stuff actually as well.
Right.
So.
Is that red or white or either?
Whatever you like. We've got currently I think we are pouring a Italian Sangiovese and a South African white. I think it's a Sauvignon Blanc. I'd have to double check that with my catering manager to be sure.
It all goes down the same way.
It does. It does.
Yeah. So, Stephen, Abbot House are looking for volunteers, and are they going to be signposted to yourself if you want to volunteer for Abbot House?
Yeah, anyone that's interested in volunteering with Abbot House should either go direct. There's a friendly team there, so feel free to walk through the door yourself. But if you don't feel confident or comfortable enough doing that, then as always we are here to deal with any kind of initial inquiries. You can find Abbot House's contact details through our own website, our own directory of voluntary organisations, and you might not know that Abbot House is the place for you. So as with everyone, we will offer a 45-minute to an hour interview to have a chat about what types of voluntary opportunity may suit you. One of the real strengths of Abbot House is the diversity that it offers to volunteers. Devon's already mentioned, that someone that's interested in gardening, someone that's possibly interested in the brewing industry, which we've spoken a fair bit about, but also local history. That's the kind of main thrust of what Abbot House is about, is to promote and raise awareness about local history. And if someone shares that interest, wants to learn a bit more or wants to pass it on to others, then it really is the ideal setting, especially with all the developments in that particular area around the museum and New Art Gallery.
So it can cater for all manner of work experience, volunteering experience that people want.
Yeah, people of all ages, people who have never volunteered before, people who maybe know very little about history. It's open to anyone, really. There are obviously recruitment procedures, and these are in place to just safeguard the existing volunteers, the staff, and the customers. They're not as stringent as a paid job as with any volunteering opportunity. Anyone that's got an interest, has got a bit of time to offer, has empathy, and understands the general ethos of the organisation, in this case the Heritage Centre.
So, Devon McHugh, thanks for coming along to the studio today.
Thanks very much,
and
Mike.
chatting about Abbot House. And certainly we look forward to a possible tasting session of the brew.
Hopefully so.
Live in the studio.
Well, you have to come along and join us as a volunteer then, Mike.
Yeah.
Yes, certainly. I'll expect a crate of beer, not just a case.
Sure, we'll see what we can arrange.
Coming up, we've got Keen, and we're just going to say goodbye to our guests.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Yes, a very special thanks to Devon McHugh from Abbot House and Stephen Adamson from FifeVoluntaryAction for popping into the studio to talk about Abbot House and the Brewing House. Get yourself along there, it's absolutely free. I'll see you next week, Tuesday morning, 7 a.m.
Radio at the heart of the community. Michael Boyd on Radio West 5.